Hello, this is Douglas Rumbaugh, and welcome to part 2 of episode 3 on working with files. Today I'm going to show you two very useful applications that come bundled with just about any Linux distribution you will ever have to work with, and those are Nano and Less. So let's get started. If we look inside of here, this is left exactly as it was at the end of the first part of the episode. So let's look, for example, at this file.txt. As I showed you in the last episode, you can use head to look at the first couple of lines within that file. In this case, we just have one. In file 1, we have a little bit more. So that's only going to display the first n number of lines, where n is any number that you so desire, the tac n option. There is another way to look at the contents of a file and browse, or to browse the contents of a file, if you will. And that is an application known as less. Now, less, if you just type in less followed by the file name, it's going to bring up this window where you can scroll up and down, and it'll tell you when you're at the end of the file, and it just shows you the contents of the file. You can't do much other than look at it, but it is a very useful command. Perhaps not so much with viewing text files like this, because you can do it in the application I'm going to show you in just a moment. But as we start to get into redirection of output, less becomes invaluable. It's really one of the more useful applications on your system. There's also an older version of less called more, which does much the same thing, except you can't scroll up, to my knowledge, and instead of using the arrow keys like you do in less to scroll up and down, you have to press enter. And it does show you the percentage left in the file, and then when you get to the end, it kicks it out. Less is much better. Actually, the story there is that less is more. That's where the name less comes from. And the name more obviously comes from the fact that it shows you more of the file than head or tail, I think. Okay. The next application that I want to show you is a little more involved than less. And if I forgot to mention it, you type Q to exit less. So when we're looking at that, if you type Q, it kicks you out of it. Okay. Now the next application. This is a text editor known as Nano. So to open up a file in Nano, you just type in Nano followed by the name of the file, and it opens the file up. Excuse me. Also, you can use Nano if you type in a file name that doesn't exist yet. It'll say new file down here and open it up for editing, and you can edit the file that way. So to use Nano, all you have to do is type. Really, you can type into the text as you would with, say, Notepad. I don't know, something like that. You know that at least right now the mouse doesn't. You can click with the mouse to hop to a new region and start typing there, but you can't highlight anything with it, at least not the way I have it configured at the moment, which I believe is the default configuration. Conveniently located at the bottom are a list of commands you can execute. The caret, as you saw in the previous part with Control-C, represents the control key. Whoops. And apparently you can also click down there to execute that command. Never knew that. Learn something new every day. The three big ones here are going to be write out. Well, two big ones really are going to be write out and exit. Those are the two that I use, although I don't use Nano very much. I prefer Vi. There's a series of videos also on this channel about using Vi. It's a much more feature-rich text editor, but it's also harder to use. So you're going to have to pick which one you like better. I'm showing Nano now because it is the easier of the two to use. It comes standard with every Linux distribution. Okay, so the write out, which is Control-O, functions the same as, say, Save As would on Notepad or Microsoft Word or something like that. You specify the file name. Just leave that default for the file name that you put in. Or if you change the name, you'll write to that new file name and leave the original file untouched. So it'll tell you how many lines you wrote as well, which is handy. To exit it, you can use Control X. Now, if you've already saved your changes and there's no modifications, it will just exit out. However, if you do make a change, such as deleting a period, it's going to alert you that you have made a change here. Save and ask you if you want to save the modified buffer. Just so you know, the buffer refers to a region. Essentially, it's a region of your computer's RAM. When you open up a file in a text editor like this is random computer science moment of the day. What happens is your computer is going to read off of your hard disk the data that comprises this text file you're opening and put that into a region of memory, which you then edit. Because obviously random access memory on your computer is much faster for the system to access than your hard drive is. That's why RAM exists in the first place. And the buffer refers to that. It's the area of memory set aside for this text document, which includes all of the text as you write it. So it's detecting that the region of memory is different from the region on the disk, and would you like to save your changes? Y or no, or you can use Control C to cancel. Note this is not the Control C, the same Control C as on the command line. Although once you're in here, if I'm not mistaken, Control C, no, it doesn't. All right, that's Nano overrides the terminal defaults. I think Vime does too. Now that I'm talking about it. In any event, answering no, you won't change it. Yeah. And once again, it lets you specify whether you want to write it to the same file or if you want to change the name. You can just hit enter and proceed on. Okay, so what have we learned today? We learned about Less, which is a text browser. You can use Less on a file and use the arrow keys, or also you can use the J to go down and the K to go up on the keyboard, so you don't actually have to take your hands off the home row to use Less, which is handy. And Q is going to exit it when you're done looking at your file. And then, of course, the Nano text editor. You type in Nano followed by the name of the file you would like to edit or create if the file doesn't already exist. And it pulls up your text editor. Options are down here. You just type. You don't have to do anything special to enable write mode or anything. Also note you can use Nano without any arguments at all. And then you'll have to specify a file name. If you don't, it's going to cancel it. So I'm just going to do that. All right. One last brief thing to mention. I've probably mentioned this before, and I will continue to mention this. In Linux, extensions aren't particularly important. So the .txt ending or the .bkp ending or what have you, those are more for you than for the system. Certain applications will, of course, look at the extension when deciding whether it can open up a file or not. So your word processor will probably only open or will save your stuff as .odts and .docs, and there is a difference in the way that they're formatted and whatnot. But you can use Nano or Vime or a text editor to open up any file on your system. Now, whether or not you will be able to make meaningful sense of the garbage on screen if you try and open up a video file in your text editor, yeah, but you can do it, and the system will let you do it. I like to use extensions just to remind myself what the file is. So like this .bkp, I'll use something like that to indicate that it's a backup of another file, or .back sometimes, BAK. TXT for text files, although I very rarely use that. I'll usually just leave no extension at all and just know that a file without an extension is a text file. Things along those lines. Once again, this is Linux. You kind of have to establish your own conventions for what you do, or you can use someone else's conventions. I'm sure that people have written entire manuals on how you're supposed to do this. I like to make my, do my own navigating, so to speak, as far as that is concerned. I'm the only one who has to deal with this computer, so as long as I know what's going on, That's all that matters, and it's probably the way you are too. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, feedback, questions, what have you, just feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get to them in a reasonable time period. As always, thank you for watching. I will see you next time, and have a nice day.